Hey there folks, I'm Mark, the host of Spectrum Pulse. Welcome again to the new channel, because it's Billboard Breakdown.
I don't remember.
You can make the argument that this is one of the weeks where the Billboard Hot 100 will attract the most attention. Not just because of the expected album bomb from Billie Eilish or the posthumous charting entries from Nipsey Hussle. Damn shame he didn't achieve them when he was alive. He probably deserved the attention. But because of our new number one. And I'll be blunt, I'm a little bit surprised that the Streisand effect delivered so much controversy that we got this number one. But there are a number of factors that got us to this point, and considering the hot takes and the spin and the discourse we've seen around it, where I'm still tweet ranting about it even today, I'll continue the work and at least try to set the record straight. But our top 10, our new number one, yeah, it's Old Town Road by Lil Nas X. Not the remix with Billy Ray Cyrus just yet. It dropped a little bit too late for those points to matter, although it'll probably be enough to push it to a second week at number one next week. But let's be blunt, while the controversy feels like it's been utterly misaligned, I'll include a link in the description for my lengthy conversation on dead end hip hop surrounding the song. At the end of the day, forget the song's quality or whether it's country or trap, you gotta consider the raw data behind it. And the way it looks right now, it's not built to last. Good sales, and it's a streaming monster, but more on YouTube driving the meme than on demand. And the radio gains are just not coming fast enough. If anything, it reminds me of what happened with T. Wayne 4 years ago with Nasty Freestyle, with more twang and just as many horse references. And I also remember just how fast that song crashed and burned when the meme economy had had enough of it. Still, it leaped past Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee at number 2, which despite the radio trying to push it out, had a decent enough week in sales and streaming. Surprisingly enough, there's still traction there. I'm honestly a little bit surprised it held up over 7 rings by Ariana Grande, which fell down to number 3 despite getting the top spot on the radio, mostly because her streaming and sales are kinda tanking, and she was losing more radio spins most of the week. More on problems with Ariana Grande in a little bit later. Now what did surprise me was that Wow by Post Malone couldn't make more use of their gains, but it fell to number 4 as the radio growth just couldn't keep up the momentum and it lost ground in the other categories. Then we have Without Me by Halsey, somehow still holding onto the radio and more streaming than I expected, but also falling back to number 5. And that pushback Please Me by Cardi B and Bruno Mars down to number 6, where the radio growth seems to be slowing down as people realize there's just not much to this song, especially on streaming and sales. Again, it's a radio industry creation. Then we got a new debut in our top 10, Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. Now, I've already talked about the song in my review of the album and of her singles. I think she's got tracks that would fit a little better here, but I'm not going to complain that it's back if it gives her more traction overall. This was an album drop that Interscope didn't manage to mismanage, and I gotta give her props for the success. Even if, unsurprisingly, the radio has no idea what to do with her, and this is primarily here thanks to streaming, especially on-demand streaming. Then we got Sucker by the Jonas Brothers, again pushed most by sales in the radio. It picked up some major traction this week up to number 8, and it'll probably stick around. Then we got Happier by Marshmello and Bastille down to number 9 thanks to losing traction everywhere. Finally. And bring up the rear, we've got Middle Child by J. Cole at number 10, which might have streaming but doesn't nearly have the sales or radio traction in order to get through long term. But where I think things are much more interesting are our losers and dropouts. And like with every album bomb, there were a fair few in both categories triggered by it, including some big songs. Now with the dropouts, you got the expected mix of long-running songs forced out but still clinching year-end spots, like I Like It by Cardi B featuring Bad Bunny and J Balvin, Lucid Dreams by Juice WRLD, Taki Taki by DJ Snake featuring Selena Gomez, Ozuna, and Cardi B. And then you get the songs that are forced off early, like Take It From Me by Jordan Davis, or Undecided by Chris Brown, or Calling My Spirit by Kodak Black. So in general, a pretty hefty net positive from Billie Eilish all around. Now the losers are a bit more complex. MIA by Bad Bunny and Drake falling to 45, and ZZ by Kodak Black, Travis Scott, and Offset going to 49. They're on their way out naturally. And lower down the charts, I'd say the same thing for This Is It by Scotty McCreery at 89, Millionaire by Chris Chris Stapleton crashing to 95, Girl Like You by Jason Aldean at 98, and Pure Cocaine by Lil Baby at 99. But then we got the gains that just sputtered out, like Miss Me More by Kelsey Ballerini skidding down to 71, or Walk Me Home by Pink at 80. And then there are the songs that probably should have a little bit more traction or just getting cut short, like Girls Need Love by Summer Walker and Drake at 76, or Undrunk by Fletcher at 77, or Twerk by City Girls featuring Cardi B at 83, or Faucet Failure by Ski Mask the Slump God at 97. Now the rest... look, Tequila by Dan and Shay probably should have crashed lower than 50 months ago, and then expect a rebound given its wins at the ACM Awards. And I've never wanted Mixed Personalities by YNW Melly and Kanye West to get big, so I'm happy it's now at 54. And of course, Robbery by Juice WRLD is at 48 and still as terrible as always. Now the rest... put a date on it by Yo Gotti and Lil Baby fell to 57, Bad Liar by Imagine Dragons crashed to 66, and Shot Clock by LMA went to 72. If she could just release Easy already, it would be so much better, I'd be so happy. But if I want to look at what really makes me happy the most, we gotta talk about our gains and returning entries. And nobody's surprised, this comes most from Billie Eilish. Now for the returns, When the Party's Over, You Should See Me in a Crown, and even Ocean Eyes, they're back at 29, 41, and 94 respectively. And when we flip into our gains and ignore Old Town Road taking number 1, it's all Billie Eilish in here too, with Bury a Friend up to 25, Wish You Were Gay up big to 31, and Lovely with Khalid at 85. And since we've got enough songs for album bomb rules to be in effect, remember 8 or more new songs from the same artist debuting on the Hot 100, and I'm only talking about them at length if they're in the top 40 or are the best and worst of the week. From Billie Eilish, we've got My Strange Addiction at 43, All the Good Girls Go to Hell at 46, ilomilo hit 62, Listen Before I Go land at 63, and 8 at 79. And hell, that's definitely a solid drop. And while I'll question how many of these will last until next week, for the debut, I see some of these having some legs, especially against little competition ahead, at least next week. But even besides Billie Eilish, there are a surprising number of new arrivals. Sadly, starting with number 93, Dedication by Nipsey Hussle, featuring Kendrick Lamar.
I'm done waiting, told you that I wasn't playing.
So I feel I have to be honest here. Before he passed, I wasn't really familiar with Nipsey Hussle's music. I had heard of what he was doing in his community, and from what I heard, I could really respect his hustle and him as a man, but I didn't know him as an artist. So I figured I'd skip making any post about it on social media and would just try to amplify what I saw elsewhere from those who knew him. But I expected I'd probably wind up covering him at some point on Billboard Breakdown posthumously, so let's start off with this collaboration with Kendrick Lamar from his Grammy-nominated project last year, Victory Lap. And yeah, it's pretty solid. I would struggle to call it great. Nipsey's flow could feel a little bit oddly jerky at spots in the rhyme scheme, even if his more braggadocious content is looking higher, feels more grounded, and also more aspirational. And Kendrick's verse fits seamlessly into that. The right kind of guest verse that cedes plenty of the spotlight to the front man and feels really balanced in the song. I guess if I were to highlight what might not work for me as well is the production. The oily warbles behind the trap skitters and rubbery bass makes sense against the cushion of vocal samples, but it doesn't really provide a lot of momentum, and the hooks feel a little bit inert to me. It's definitely solid on the content alone though, so yeah, take some time. Check this out. Number 87, Suge by DaBaby.
Yeah, I just signed a deal, I'm on.
You know, given how much traction just below the radar I've seen for DaBaby, a North Carolina MC who drops his debut album about a month ago, I was genuinely curious to delve into what the hell his sound was like, especially given the pileup of mixtapes that he's pushed out. And okay, I see the appeal of the production at least. The deeper tones off the trap hi-hats have drawn some comparisons to Star by Brockhampton, but DaBaby himself isn't really impressing me. Yeah, he's got some charisma and a decent enough flow, but dig even a little bit deeper and I'm not really seeing what's all that impressive or good about a lot of his wordplay. For one, in his first verse he's talking about possibly buying a black guy, and then his second verse is mentioning about how he's not stupid because he used to cheat off girls' tests in school. And beyond that, it's a bunch of flexing, shooting people, and stealing your girl. In other words, beyond a decent groove, if you don't care about the lyrics, I guess it's fine, but there's just not much here that's all that interesting to me. I see the hype, but it doesn't mean I really have to agree with it. Let's move on. Number 82, Last Time I Checked by Nipsey Hussle featuring YG. Okay, second Nipsey Hussle song, this time with YG. Seems like a natural pairing, and honestly, I really like this. Hopping on the sort of minimalist pulsating bass line with trap skitters, flashy synths, and traces of flutes, it's exactly the right sort of production that flatters both Nipsey Hussle and YG really well. And the aspirational flexing, it's natural for Nipsey here. And then YG shows up, where like Kendrick, he plays more of the sidekick mold on the song, and while he's a little bit more aggressive, it does speak to the street logic that underlies both Nipsey's and YG's messages. Hell, I might even like this more than Dedication. The production certainly goes harder, there's more of a hook, and YG might be the more natural complement, so yeah, I really like this. Really damn good song. I'll take it. Number 70, Monopoly by Ariana Grande and Victoria Monet.
Collecting like Monopoly.
Okay, I said we'd get to this, and let me ask this question. Why does Ariana Grande think it's a good idea to shell out money for a non-album single and music video when she already has so many other songs still charting off of Thank You Next? I get wanting to have the monopoly on hits, and then use this as a cheap way to undercut Billie Eilish, who in pop I'd argue is her only credible competition who can deliver a real album bomb off of streaming, but that's just speculation on my part. But again, I've said that Ariana Grande runs the risk of saturating the market with songs like this, and as it is, man, this is album filler at best, passed off as a single. Now, it's not saying it's precisely bad. The production has some okay body and groove, even if the vocal production and trap snare sound like they were really cutting corners. And lyrics like, this has been building up, I guess this friendship like Home Depot, that should have been pitched out the window. But here's the real issue. I get Ariana Grande wanting to give one of her co-writers some shine, but Victoria Monet is nowhere close to matching Ariana Grande's vocal talents and expressiveness, especially when Ariana gets her vocals layered with all the multi-tracking. It's just not balanced between the two of them to have both getting the main credit, and the flirtations with bisexuality, they feel so phoned in. I mean, it's not bad, but it really is disposable. And that's probably the biggest problem. Number 65, Double Up by Nipsey Hussle featuring Belly and Dom Kennedy.
Never let a hard time humble us.
So let's not mince words. This sounds like a Drake song. Spare atmospherics and bird song, very minimal vocal flutters with auto-tune, hardly any melody, and running way too long with an odd lack of hard-hitting content or bars. And sure, Nipsey Hussle sounded better than Dom Kennedy does in the flexing, but it still feels weirdly lacking in a lot of detail, especially compared to the other songs from Nipsey Hussle that we've covered thus far. But I think my real problem with this is Belly. I mean, I get the switch up with Nipsey on the follow-through of the hook, but why he thought his contribution to the overlong hook was better than his more melodic and layered post-chorus is baffling. That probably should have been the hook, because the hook right now sounds like a scratch tape left in before the proper one is to fill in the song. So yeah, not sure why this was the more popular track to land higher than the others, but again, it's not precisely bad, it's just disposable. And it probably shouldn't be. Number 59, God's Country by Blake Shelton. You know, I was just planning to go through this song and say that Blake Shelton was just trend riding, it says even as country's going back to more of the neo-traditional sound, and yet that's very much not what this song is. In fact, the closest thing I can compare this to is what Eric Church was doing circa 2014 on The Outsiders. The swampy heaviness in the production pulling from southern rock, the biblical swell driven off the bells, and the quasi-gothic flair in the lyrics, Blake Shelton's vocals sounding rougher than they probably ever have, and then you start paying attention to the stiffer percussion and the lack of real groove, and the fact that the lyrics aren't really that dark or transgressive, and instead trying to play for a bluesy gospel ponderousness, and then it clicked why this was not hitting nearly as hard as it should. Because yeah, on the surface, this should be exactly what would work for me coming out of Blake Shelton, but it reminds me way too much of how Rag and Bone Man was ripping off Hosier a couple of years ago. The broader commercial version of what actually took a chance before. But it's not even that. This is Blake Shelton trying to pull from what Eric Church was doing 5 years ago. So while I wouldn't call it precisely bad, again, although I do question someone as slick as Blake Shelton trying to sell this sort of song, and people tend to forget that The Outsiders was a total mess as a song and an album, but this just rubs me in a weird way, and I don't think I like it, especially given how the cadence on the hook is pulled straight from Brooks and Dunn's Brand New Man. I mean, I should like this. There's parts in which I definitely appreciate, but if Blake Shelton gets the success where Eric Church's weirdness was maligned, I'm gonna be pissed, let me tell you that. Number 48, I Love You by Billie Eilish. So again, I've already talked about this song in the review, so I'm gonna keep it short. This is one of the best possible ways Billie Eilish could have ended the album. The vocal layering is stunning off the guitars, especially with her brother's harmonic contributions, the subtle touches of the playing behind her on the second verse, the hesitation to be truly vulnerable and admit this is something that she wants to pursue, even if it's for all the wrong reasons. He might not have mean to send I love you, and it could possibly not work at all. And then you have the interpolation of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah that doesn't feel forced or overly polished or obvious. Look, it's hands down one of the best songs she's ever released, and given her run of singles, that says a ton. Fantastic track. I genuinely hope of the deep cuts, this is the one that sticks around. Number 44, Racks in the Middle by Nipsey Hussle featuring Roddy, Ricch, and Hip Boy. Okay, last of the Nipsey Hussle songs. And why does this sound like damn near nothing off of Victory Lap? With a drippy production that has nothing close to the West Coast grooves I like so much, split up by these pitched up squealing sounds that almost sound like air horns. Yeah, Nipsey Hussle really does save the song, especially amidst the flexing on the second verse. He references the loss of his friends and how he's not afraid to let his grief show on his face and his tears. But beyond a decent melody line on the hook, you get the feeling that Roddy Ricch isn't close to giving the song the emotional depth or lyrical heft it needs, or that Hit Boy was actually going to let the production build effectively when Nipsey asked for it. So yeah, I guess I see the appeal from at least a Nipsey Hussle point of view. It is a more accessible song, but the fact that it charted the highest, it's disappointing. It's okay, but it's not better. Number 35, Xanny by Billie Eilish.
To feel better.
Again, already talked about the song in the review, so let's aim to keep it short. It's great! I love the quivering effects around the vocals and the subtle touches of atmospherics. That might be one of the better uses of binaural oscillation I've heard in a long time. And while the pianos might seem to imply more of a smooth lounge vibe, that bass line and the lyrics, they're all about dulling pain through a lot of drug abuse and nailing a very interesting, almost noir vibe, which I'm a little bit surprised that Billie Eilish can nail so effectively. So yeah, a really great song. I'm happy it landed so high. But let's land things off with number 7. Bad Guy by Billie Eilish.
I'm the bad guy. Duh.
So let's get the issue out of the way first. The drop doesn't work. It kills considerable bass groove momentum that drives so much of Bad Guy in favor of clunky trap that's really phoned in, obvious, and doesn't even match the overall mood of the song. And that mood is really tricky to nail down. Still a little bit eerie with the tune on the hook and that coursing low end, but Billie Eilish hits the balance between creepy instability and then just taking the piss out of all of it. It doesn't surprise me why this has become her biggest hit thus far. It's a joke at the expense of herself and pretty much everyone else, and she's laughing along with it. And the fact she steers into it so effectively is the reason why it works. And you know what? That's a really tough line to walk. So then trying to make it serious after the drop just feels unnecessary. It doesn't quite transition well, if I'm being honest. Still, for the most part, I still like this. Good song. And for this week, so I'll admit this, it was good and the best fell out easier than the worst, which means I'm taking I Love You by Billie Eilish as the best of the week, and Last Time I Checked by Nipsey Hussle and YG is the honorable mention. Just phenomenal groove and production there, really liked it. Now the worst... Look, I'll be honest, I don't think there's any outright bad songs here, and I don't blame Nipsey Hussle entirely for Double Up with Dom Kennedy and Belly, but it does go way too long and feels really sloppily constructed to put together, so it's getting dishonorable mention, with Worst of the Week going to Monopoly by Ariana Grande and Victoria Monet because it barely exists, feels sloppily produced, does nothing to elevate Victoria Monet beyond her presence, and generally feels like the worst possible business decision anyone could have made to put this out right now. Hell, beyond business, why Ariana Grande thought she needed this is utterly beyond me. It's periphery. It will not exist in a week or two. But hey, next week, the fallout. Let's see what sticks around. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, and I'll see you next time.